Play. Okay. Fine. Okay, today we will discuss, this is the 7th class of the philosophy seminar. And we're going to discuss the concepts of fate and free will. What is the relationship between our efforts in life and so-called fate? On the one hand, it seems that we are able in some way to affect our destiny because we make efforts, and sometimes those efforts are fruitful. Quite frequently, the results that we have is in proportion to the effort that we make. And so we could say that we have free will to create the reality we want to create. On the other hand, however, we see that there are times in which other forces intervene and the events are not exactly as we would like them to be, or the results. And that some events seem to happen as if they are destined from some other power rather than our will, our desire, or our need. So what is the relationship between our effort in life and those seemingly destined or fated events? Now, I'm going to give you a number of models or concepts which may help us approach understanding this seemingly conflicting ideas. No model, however, will be totally perfect. And perhaps the answer to this question, that is, the relationship between fate and free will, probably lies beyond the perception of our mind, beyond our capability of understanding in terms of time and space. But I'm going to give you some ideas which may help. Now, in one way, we could say that the relationship is like a card game, a game of cards. And that is that the cards that we receive, that we are dealt, is fate. So we are dealt with certain parents, a certain kind of body when we were born, whether it's male or female, whether it's healthy or not so healthy, strong or weak, a certain economic situation we are born into a certain psychological state in the family. And so these are the cards that we are given, are dealt by the life itself. What we do with those cards, however, is our free will. So 2 people or 15 people could all dealt a certain physical weakness, for example, with the digestive system or the nervous system. And each of those people living in a different way, one person performing exercises, eating properly, doing relaxation, meditation, will have a different outcome than another person who just doesn't bother to observe any of his ways of living and worsens that situation. So any situation given to us will have the effect not only of the situation, but of what we do in response to that. So in one way, we can see fate as the cards we are given by life, and free will, what we do with those cards, how we handle them, whether we learn through that and how we react. Another way of understanding this relationship between fate and free will is to realize that life is a school and that we are souls in the process of learning, and that in school, for example, when you're in the first grade, the second grade, or level, however you call it, you have very few choices. You need to learn specific lessons. And so you are not given any free will. The child, until about 12 years old or later, is not asked what he wants to learn. He must learn these specific things. As the child grows, however, then he is asked to make a choice. Do you want to go into humanities? Do you want to go into science? Do you want to go into arts? How do you want to evolve? How do you want to develop yourself? So we can imagine that the same may be happening in terms of our soul evolution, that in the beginning, an immature soul, a young soul, may have to go through very standard life experiences, so that through those life experiences, this soul gets the stimuli it needs in order to learn. And that after a period of time, the soul may start making choices as to what kind of lessons the soul would like to go through. Now, because the soul has chosen a certain lesson before incarnating, doesn't mean that the soul remembers that lesson once it's incarnated, and it doesn't mean that it definitely will learn that lesson. Because often we see things as happening as totally unjust and as having nothing to do with what we should have in our lives. We become hurt, we feel angry, and we don't use these experiences which life gives us for the possibility of learning. We have forgotten that we have chosen this lesson. In which case, this lesson is not fate, but this lesson is what we have chosen to learn. So when we talk about fate, it's important to understand that we are, at least in my perception, I'm not imagining that there is chance in the creation of my fate, nor am I imagining that there is some divine being which is deciding my fate. I think we discussed this last week. I believe that I create my own fate and my own free will by my previous actions, thoughts, and words, by my present belief system, in my present emotional state, and by the lessons I have chose to learn. So although it seems to be an event coming from life, totally independent from me, I, on a spiritual level and on a mental level, have created this event. So it's not a fate separate from my own choices in life. But then I have, except for that, besides the fact that I have created this fate by my previous actions and by my lessons I have chosen to learn, I still have the free will to react to that fate, to react to that event which is happening in one way or the other. And then I'm creating a new reality for the future, because the present is the result of the past, and the future then is the result of the past plus the present, because the present is the past of the future. So every choice I make, every time I react in a certain way, I am creating a new kind of future. Another example which might help us is the example of a car moving with some momentum towards a wall. This car has momentum, which means a direction and a mass and a velocity. We could say that the car is the physical body, that the engine is the emotional body, that the steering wheel is the mind, and that the driver is the higher intellect, and that the owner, who's sitting in the back seat, is the soul. So because the driver is pretty much asleep, that is, the higher intellect is not functioning, is not awakened yet, the car is a car moving without a driver. And so what would a car do if it was moving without a driver? It would follow the course of the least resistance. It would go downhill. It would just follow its senses, follow its needs, follow its desires. And that's how we are living our lives. We are completely controlled by our needs, our desires, our habits, because there is no higher intellect which takes a hold of the mind and can steer it away from that. Not that they are evil, but simply our happiness may not be there. What is truly beneficial for us may be other than what satisfies us temporarily, such as smoking or eating too much or drinking or anything which may be a temporary pleasure, but in the long run may harm my health and my happiness. So we could say that all of my choices in the past, which have created my habits and my desires and my needs, are leading me to a certain fate. They're leading me to a certain result. I am in a way programmed, and I will create illness, I will create divorce, I will create success, I will create unhappiness. That is, my programming is leading me in a certain direction. So this is fate. Fate is the result of my programmed functioning. However, if I can get a hold of the steering wheel and change the direction that the car is going, I can avoid this fate. So although there is a great momentum towards this fate, toward this fated event, I have the power, if I obtain clarity to see where this way of life, this way of eating, this way of thinking, this way of behaving is leading me, and if I can make a change in that, I can change the direction of this car and not hit this particular wall or go into another direction. So another way to understand the relationship between fate and free will is that the fated events are the result of the way we think, act, eat, behave in life, and that if we change them, we can change our reality. Another way of understanding this relationship would be a dog or a goat tied to a pole with a rope. Now, this dog or goat has a limited amount of freedom. The longer the rope, the greater the freedom. The shorter the rope, the less the freedom. So there is the amount of freedom that this being has to do with the length of the rope. So if we associate the length of this rope with our, if you like, our causal account, that is, with the karmas that we have brought with us in this life and that we are creating in this life, the more egotistically I have functioned in my previous lives and in this life, the shorter the rope, the more the specific the events that I must go through. Whereas when I have functioned selflessly and creating less karma, limiting karma, then the rope is longer, so I have a greater degree of freedom. So another way to understand this is that there is a certain amount of freedom which depends on the karma which I bring into this lifetime. Another way of understanding it is like a bank account. When I continually make deposits in my bank account, then that gives me a certain amount of freedom because I have in there enough money to do things that I would like to do. When I make withdrawals continuously from my bank account, at some point my account is negative, it's in the red, and I have no freedom to do anything. So our freedom, our free will, the amount of freedom that we have, perhaps is not only a relationship of the development of discrimination, as we already mentioned, and the development of willpower, but also the state of my cosmic bank account. That is, the state of how many selfish acts I have in relationship to how many selfless acts. So the more selfishly I function in life, the more karma I create, and the less freedom I have. Whereas the more selflessly I function in life, my account is in a positive state, and the greater freedom that I have. Now, none of us knows the state of our account. We are not sent monthly a notice of our bank balance. of our cosmic bank balance. So we may think that we're being done injustice to because we are loving and we are kind and we are forgiving, and yet we keep receiving these kinds of negative behaviors from the other person. So the only conclusion I could draw is that my account simply hasn't gotten into the black yet. I'm still owing. That is, these events which seem to be coming to me, which seem unjust, are not unjust. They are there is a perfection in the way these balances are kept. Mistakes are not made. It's not a mistake that this person is behaving to me in this way. It's not a mistake that my loved one had to leave. There are no mistakes in these accounts. Now, you must remember, however, that we mentioned last week that because I am receiving some kind of negative behavior or negative events from life, it doesn't always mean that this is the result of something of the past. It could be that I have something to learn in the present, or that I am functioning with certain beliefs which are causing me to experience these negative activities. So that it's not enough just to accept it and say, this is my karma, I'm just going to accept it. I need also to see if what is happening is a reflection of what I believe today, or how I feel about myself, or how I feel about people, or whether my beliefs or emotions or attitudes are being reflected back to me. And definitely always the question is, what is the lesson which I need to learn here? Let's take an example. Let's take, for example, illness. Let's say that illness is an event which comes into my life. Now, we already mentioned that no event comes without our creating it. That illness could be created by past actions and past way of living and thinking. It could be created by my present way of living and thinking. Or it could be created because I have chosen to go through illness in order to learn something. In all three cases, what we are interested in is, what can I learn? I mean, this is the only real question. What can I learn from what is happening? Let's take the example of illness. First of all, one could learn to change one's dietary habits, because food plays a very important role in health and in illness. And that change of eating habits would not only create health, but would also change the vibratory level of the being. That is, eating more healthily means that I become more sensitive. I become more attuned to spiritual energies. I become more attuned to higher parts of my being. So actually this illness, which causes me to change the way I eat, becomes actually a process of spiritual evolution. Because the purer I eat, the more pure my vibrations are, the purer my thoughts are. Secondly, it might be a lesson to stop and relax more. Some people create illness in their lives because they don't know how to stop. And their body is not getting the rest it needs to get in order to rejuvenate itself. Because probably they are attached to some kinds of activities in life. A third lesson which we can learn through illness is to face the negative emotional patterns which might be creating this illness. What are the emotions involved here? 80% of our illnesses are psychosomatic. So in wanting to heal myself, I need to face the negative emotions which are contributing to this physical imbalance and work through them. And that also frees up my emotional life and frees up my spiritual process. So we can see that this illness comes, that having a sensitive body is a great gift. Many people feel it's a curse because there are other people that can eat anything they want, have the most negative emotions, and never get ill. And we might be envious of these people, but actually they are the ones that are losing because they can go very far off the track. Whereas a person who has a sensitive body has a teacher. A sensitive body is a teacher who doesn't allow you to go far away, doesn't allow you to go into negative thinking without realizing you're thinking negatively. It doesn't allow you to eat unsuitable foods without realizing it. And so it's actually a blessing. A sensitive body which forces this person to see his emotions continuously and check his food continuously is in a better position for spiritual growth than a person who has a very gross body which is insensitive to the emotions and to the food. Another lesson that we can learn through illness is humility and compassion. Sometimes we can become very proud and feel that we are very important. And when this very small bacteria, which we can't even see, knocks us on our back, we realize how strong we are and how important we are. And also, going through illness helps us to be compassionate to others who are ill. So someone who is a very hard type of person, very much in the role of the strong and unneeding person, and maybe who rejects weakness, can learn a lot by going through an illness so that he has understanding for weakness. And this is another lesson, that is the ability to accept love and caring. There are some people that cannot accept love and caring from other people. So an illness may be exactly what they need in order to be able to open up, to experience their weakness, and accept caring and love from other people. Another possible lesson through illness would be that we would stop our activity for a certain period of time and think more deeply about the meaning of our lives. Often when we are engaged in so many activities, we're running without knowing why we are running. Everything seems like, well, we have to do so many things without actually investigating whether we really have to do these things or not. Many social obligations, many habits which we have cultivated over the years, which may not be useful or satisfying anymore. And yet we can't disengage ourselves from that. So illness, of course, if someone doesn't have to get ill to do this, one could take a retreat. And I suggest regular retreats, once, 3 or 4 a year for a few days, in which a person would be by himself and think about life, and think about what they're doing with their lives, and whether they want to continue doing with their lives that which what they're doing. Another possible lesson through illness would be to develop positive mental powers in order to be able to contact our inner healing powers, and to learn mind control, or learn self-healing, or learn positive projection. And then once you have learned this out of the need to heal yourself, you have this increased mental power, which you can use in various aspects of the life. So it is a need which causes us to develop spiritual power or healing power in order to heal ourselves. Another possible benefit from illness could be that we would realize that we have to take a more active role in being responsible for our health. Until that time, many people feel that the doctor is responsible for my health, or the psychologist is responsible for my emotions, or the priest is responsible for my spiritual growth, or whatever it may be. And once we get into this, we realize that I am the creator of my health. Only I can create health. Only I can create happiness in myself, and only I can create my spiritual evolution. No one can create my spiritual evolution, or create my happiness, or create my health. I have to become responsible. I can ask advice from these people. I can accept help, but only I can create my health, my happiness, and my spiritual growth. It may also, if the illness is a serious illness, be an opportunity to learn to have faith and to surrender our will to God. That is, to make the effort we need to make to be healthy, but to accept any result. So that is to be able to surrender. I'm doing what I can to be well, but I accept any possible result concerning this. I accept your wisdom in relationship to the situation, which then becomes also a stimulus for greater contact with God, with the divine. We tend to pray more and to communicate with God more when we have problems than when we don't have problems. And so that may be a period of time we need to go through in our lives in order to develop that relationship, so that when we get well, we continue that relationship, hopefully. It also can be an opportunity to examine our values in life, because often we have very superficial values, and we become confronted with the values of health and of life or death, and all of these other things, appearance and money and material objects and what they did and what they didn't do, what they said, what they didn't say, become rather insignificant. And so we begin to realize what is really important in life. And if we approach death, or even if we think we're approaching death, we're also faced then with the possibility of detaching ourselves from the physical body. That is, realizing I am not this body. I exist separately from this physical body. So as you can see, there are many possible lessons, benefits, which a soul can gain through illness. Now the benefits can be gained from any situation. It doesn't mean that we have to seek illness or seek negative experiences in order to grow spiritually. It just means that when something is happening, it's better to look at it as a learning process and see what we can learn about it through it. Let's take, for example, another case, a divorce or a separation from a loved one, either through divorce or through death. First of all, if it's in a divorce situation, it becomes a stimulus to examine our belief system and examine the behaviors and the attitudes which we have, which may have contributed to this situation. So it's a time of self-evaluation, self-examination. How did I contribute to the situation? Another lesson is to be able to love the other regardless of the other's behavior. That is, to develop an unconditional love towards the other person regardless of whatever happens. Another lesson for some people may be to discover that they can live by themselves, that they have the strength, the security, the self-worth, the inner potential to be okay, whatever may happen. It definitely, if the divorce takes place, is an opportunity for developing inner strength and self-worth. And it's an opportunity for many people to direct their energies in a spiritual direction. So many people come to Harmonic Izuri either because of a divorce or through the death of a loved one. And that starts out a whole spiritual process for these people in which they realize that there's something beyond our daily life. You know, there's something beyond life itself which is motivating us. This doesn't mean that we have to get divorced in order to grow spiritually. It just means that if it happens, see it in a positive light, get rid of the anger, the hate, and see what we can learn. What happens if it's a death of a loved one? Then we have some of the previous lessons to learn, but also the lesson to be able to wake up to the fact that we are temporary. I don't know how people do this. I mean, people live their lives like ostriches. That is, it's like they're never going to die, and like the people that they are with are never going to die. And they don't even want to think about it, even hear about it. The seminar we did the previous weekend was one of the most important seminars that I think that we have done, and all the people that took it found it to be a very important seminar. But very few people came. It was about death. It was about facing our own death and facing the death of loved one. And one woman said, I said, why don't you come? It'll help you. She says, well, maybe it's too early. She's only 60 years old now. So he said, well, maybe it's too early. Maybe I should wait about 10 years. And I said to him, you could die tomorrow. You have no idea when you're going to leave the physical body. I mean, people die at 2 years old. People die at 10 years old. I mean, you have to wait to confront this reality. You have to be ready to die. It's silly. People are very silly about death. They just don't want to look at it at all. So one thing would be, we would be forced to look at it and say, what happened here? Where is that being that I was loving, was giving me so much joy, which we did things with? Where is that being? Where did that being come from? Where did it go? What is it? When we see this body which we put in the earth and it will become earth again, then what was I loving? This earth? I was loving the earth? Or I was loving some energy, and where is that energy now? What is that energy made of? What is life? What is death? What is the purpose of life? My father's assassination was a very important point in my life, which forced me to look at this deeply and to see and to investigate what is life, what is death, and what conclusions can I come to. And these conclusions are in the book, The Mystical Circle of Life, which is available for you in English also on the shelves. Also, the death of a loved one becomes a challenge to be able to accept the will of God. Many people come to me and they say, you know, I don't believe in God, or I don't believe God loves me, if He does exist, because I prayed so much for this not to happen, and it happened, and so how could there be a God? And this is like saying to somebody that you exist only if you give me what I ask from you. Otherwise you don't exist. It's pretty silly. I mean, either I believe in a higher wisdom. I'm asking for something for myself. How am I sure that this is the best possible solution for this other soul's evolution or for my evolution? Obviously, it's usually better for my evolution if I lose that on which I am depending, because then I have to learn to find an inner source of strength, an inner source of security and self-worth. So obviously I'm going to be very subjective when I'm asking. I think that the best thing is for my loved one to live, but that may not be what's best for my evolution as a soul, or what's best for that soul's evolutionary process. And of course, the death of a loved one becomes a powerful experience to which we are forced to re-examine our goals in life and our purpose in life. So we can see that each event which occurs in our life seems to be a combination of what we call fate, which is just the powers that we have created in the past, in the present, and in the future, in the past, in the present, and in our choice for our lessons that we're going to learn. And so we are creating certain events which come to us, which we see them as unrelated to us. We have created, however, those events. They are not created by some other being. So a car accident, or an earthquake, or the death of a loved one, or the birth of a child, a marriage, a divorce, all of these may seem to be events fated and beyond our conscious choice. But in reality, we have created them by our previous actions, by the present contents of our mind, and by the specific lessons that we have chosen as souls to learn in this incarnation. How we react to those events, which we ourselves have created, is our free will. Now, let's take a look at another example. Let's say that we are on this river, and this river is leading from a state of ignorance to a state of wisdom, from a state of feeling separate and alienated from everything to a state of feeling unity and love, from an unevolved state to an evolved state. And so there is this pressure the evolutionary force which is pushing us all towards evolution, towards learning, towards manifesting a greater amount of our inner potential. We all have unlimited inner potential. We are all potentially Christs. Every one of us has the potential within himself to express those powers and those qualities of love and of wisdom and the powers over physical matter which Christ had and which the apostles had afterwards. And we are in a process of that evolution. Now, we are not aware of that. When we get into the physical body, we become attached to the physical body, and we're not so concerned anymore about evolution. We're more concerned about surviving. We're more concerned about having affirmation, having love, and being secure in the material world. When we become concerned about that, we want to make things not moving. We want to say, I want to have this person and this house and this situation, and I want nothing to change, because change creates fear. We fear change. It's not pleasant for us. So what's happened? We're in this river, and what we do, we sort of catch on to various twigs, we hold on to the rocks, we try to obstruct the process of growth. We don't want to move. We don't want to move on, because moving on means letting go of old attachments, letting go of habits, letting go of needs, and moving on to new needs. You see, there's an evolution of needs. When we were little children, we needed toys. And if anyone ever said to us, in a few years, these toys are going to mean nothing to you, we would say, they're crazy. This toy is everything to me. This doll is everything to me. And then it was a bicycle, and then it was a motorcycle, and then it was a car, and then it was a spouse, and then it was our job. And as we go through the years, what makes us happy changes. The needs that we have evolve, you see. So when I don't allow my needs to evolve, when I'm 60 years old and I'm still in my adolescence, then I'm not allowing my needs to evolve, and I'm stuck in my evolutionary process. I'm still trying to find happiness in the ways I found happiness when I was an adolescent. You see? And so when time comes to retire and to give up the life, the material life, and to direct my energy towards the divine, I'm still caught up in the ways of feeling satisfaction through material objects or through traveling and these kinds of things, rather than directing my energy now towards communicating with the divine. You see, in the Indian culture, there are the 4 ashramas, which are the 4 stages of life, which are a pretty logical way of approaching spiritual life, because you don't deny yourself anything, but you always move on. So what is it? The first fourth of your life is learning, and your dharma is to learn and to serve your parents and to serve society and to respect. The second stage of life is having a family and bringing it up. So your dharma is to work, make money, feed your children, give them an education, and then when they're 20, 21, 22, this dharma finishes. And so you stop directing your energy and your money towards the children, and you start directing it towards society. And so you move away from being enclosed in a family situation, and you give your energy and your money, your financial situation, you use it to help society. And then the fourth stage, the last quarter of the life, you give up even the social service, and you direct all your energies to communicating with the divine. In this way, the person doesn't have any suppressed needs. He has learned, he has brought up a family, he has served society, and leaving things behind him, letting his needs evolve, rather than trying to take drugs at 60 to keep up my sexual life, as society has led us. Let it go. let it disappear. I mean, it's like not allowing, it's not saying that there's anything wrong with sex. It's beautiful. The thing is, it has its time and its place. And if I don't allow my desires, my needs to evolve, I'm stopping my evolutionary process. Yeah? So, we are in this river. The river is pushing us. And so, what is happening? Every time I say, no, I don't want to move. No, I want to keep myself in my old way of thinking, in my old situation, then definitely negative events will start coming. Not because I'm evil, not as a punishment, but just as a pressure to force me to let go. You see, it's just it has nothing to do with punishment. It has nothing to do with heaven and hell. Nothing to do with evil or badness. It has simply to do with evolution. So the more I hold on, the more I need events which will say, get going, let go. And the longer I hold on, the stronger the events. And it's the same with illness. For example, I have a small stomach ache, and I say, well, I'll take a pill. I don't look at how I eat. I keep ignoring the stomach ache, I keep taking it, but then it becomes an ulcer. I'm still not ready to change the way I eat and the way I think, and then it becomes cancer. And I'm still not ready. Understand? So I ignore, first a very mild stimulus comes, then a stronger stimulus comes, and then a heavy stimulus comes. And in this case, I have the free will. I can react with a pill, or I can react in order to address, by addressing myself to the cause. What is the cause? The way I eat and the way I think. And the way I'm living my life. I'm running around, I'm not resting, I'm not strengthening my nervous system, I'm not exercising, I'm not breathing, I'm eating all these foods. So you can see that life is a balance. First of all, the fate that we experience is a fate that we create by our previous actions, by our present beliefs, and by the lessons we have chosen to learn. And then we have the free will to react to that fate, the fated event, which we have created. But if we really have free will or not depends on two things. If I have discrimination, and if I have will. You can't have free will if you don't have will. So first of all, I have to see what is the mistake that I am making, which is creating the reality which I don't like. First of all, I have to have the discrimination, that clarity of thought, and then I have to have the willpower to be able to change my programming and approach this in a different way. So without willpower, there is no free will. And without discrimination, there is no free will. So all people do not have free will. Most people are programmed. As long as I am programmed, and as long as my reactions are programmed, then I cannot talk about free will, because I am simply a robot, which is reacting as it is programmed to react. If I go into the computer and change the software, and change the programming and tell it react differently now, when you have stimulus A or B, then I can talk about free will. Okay? So, in conclusion, in our life there seem to be events which are programmed from other sources than our own will. They seem just to happen. But my belief is that these events don't just happen, that we create them by our past actions, words, deeds, and choices, by the contents of our mind at the present, and by the specific lessons we have chosen to learn in this life. But then, even having created those events, I now have the free will how I'm going to react to that. And what I need to do is to ask myself, what am I doing which is attracting this situation? What am I doing which is creating it? Regardless of what I did in the past, because I can't change the past, but at least I can see what is in me now, which is continuing to attract these kinds of situations. And most important question, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this situation? And then we will be using the events of our lives and we will be growing. And growing means allowing certain parts of the way we think and act and behave to change. Growth basically is a process of change. It means, growth means the death of the old. For example, the almond cannot become an almond tree unless it dies. The almond has to die. The almond disappears in order for the tree to become. The child has to die in order for the adult to become. So I have to die to what I am in order to become what I'm going to become. So life is a continual process of death. It's a continual dying to parts of myself which are no more useful, not anymore serving my happiness, serving my relationships, serving my purpose in life. Letting those parts die, and only when they die can the new parts go. Only if the old trees die can the new ones get light in the forest. If the old trees don't die, all of the young seeds will die because they will get no light. So the old parts of our being need to pass away gradually, and that will give space for the new parts to develop. Okay, so we'll do our meditation, and then we will have any questions that you have. Okay, sit with your back straight, your eyes closed, and focus on your breathing. With the help of the breathing, allow your back to become even straighter and your body more relaxed. And when you feel ready, you can begin the alternate breathing, changing nostrils, breathing slowly and rhythmically. Inhaling into the solar plexus, holding the energy in the heart center. Exhaling as you feel the energy moving up through the neck. And holding suspension of the breath as you focus on your forehead. breathing slowly with concentration. Now, you can allow your breathing to continue naturally. Make sure that your body is comfortable. Allow the muscles of your abdomen to relax. Allow your solar plexus to relax. Feel your shoulders. Allow your shoulders to relax. Feel the muscles of your face. Allow your cheeks to relax. Allow your eyes to relax. And feel your forehead, allowing your forehead to relax. Now take a few minutes to focus on the divine and communicate with God in your own way, spontaneously and sincerely. focus on the light, the divine light in your forehead. Allow the light to fill the head, and to permeate the brain. Allow the light to flow into your mind, feeling this sensation of light throughout your body. And throughout the mind. You can focus on your chosen object of concentration, returning to that with patience and love, connecting more and more deeply with that. gradually relax the body and the concentration. Okay, if you have any questions or anything you would like to say concerning either meditation or the philosophy that we're studying.
I found it a very interesting thought that it's a blessing to have sensitive body. I hadn't thought about it, and it's quite true. It brings you back onto thinking about those things.
You can't stray very far from what is better for your spiritual evolution. Anything else you'd like to ask or add? Christine?
Individual lesson, or is it a lesson for the world altogether? Is it our karma as a whole?
Yes. There are various ways to answer this question. It is our karma, and it is to the degree that we are interested in care and try to solve the problems around us, we also liberate ourselves from these karmas, so that it's like in a body, anything that's happening in my leg is going to be affecting my heart. Anything that's happening in my heart is going to be affecting, of course, all my body. So in that way, anything that happens anywhere on the planet in some way affects us. And of course, each group of people, we could say, could have a karma. The Greek karma and the English karma, the American karma, the Russian karma. But there are no Greek souls, or American souls, or Christian souls, or Jewish souls. So the soul will choose to incarnate into the group which is working out the karma that soul wants to work out in this lifetime. But even in that group, he may not be affected by the group karma. For example, in an earthquake, which is a group karma situation, or a flood, or even an airplane crash, which is a group karma situation, the specific karma that each person has in relationship to that event is different. And it says this in the Bible when Christ is talking about the second coming and the catastrophes which would take place before the second coming. It says, 2 men will be at the mill, one will die, one will live. 2 women will be in the field, one will live, one will die. meaning that even if we have a group karma of this building falling now, each of us has a very specific personal karma in relationship to that event. And nothing will happen to us which is not of our own creation. But we do group with people who have similar karmas, yes.
And so, if you have chosen a death, I was thinking about what you said about your father last week. That means, that there's no free will in that. I mean, that's predestined.
Well, we don't know if there was any free will. We can't say that, because that may have been the result of all of his actions and ways of thinking, even in this life until that point. We cannot
Related to his actions. I mean, how is it related to his actions? If someone happened to, run you over, is that related to your actions?
Yeah, it could be a result of the way you're thinking, the way you're functioning. I mean, it is possible that it was something chosen before birth. I'm not denying that possibility. But no one can say for sure that there were not opportunities in life to change that. But also the question is, why change it? I mean, there's no... our final conclusion and the death seminar that we did this weekend was that the life in the physical body is actually a much less pleasant reality than life outside of the physical body. No, but you're not allowed to commit suicide, but we all look at death as something negative, when death in fact is the greatest human experience, because it's the freedom from this limitation which we've been experiencing for so many years. Anyway, I cannot tell you whether that event was destined and there was no possibility of changing it or not, and whether anything that my father did or thought in this life led to that, increased that possibility or not. I don't know. But since the present is always the result of the past, and since my father lived 55 years before that event, we cannot ignore all of his choices which were made in those 55 years and say it was chosen before he was born. Because each of those choices he made for 55 years is added to what he chose before he was born. So I think it's a combination. This is how we see things, because we're not aware of our past. Now, we're not aware of our subconscious, and we're not aware of the choices we have made in this lifetime. And this is why these things seem to be so out of our own will. Anything else that you would like to say or ask? Okay, so we continue next week. Have a nice week. Is it anything coming on there now? Okay, you come here and speak.